Hey guys, this is Brad and Mike from Dallas Geek, and today we're gonna go in with our next lineup in the Media versus Geek Culture series.
I feel like there's a better title for that we can...
We'll figure something out. But today we want to talk about the use of deleted scenes and alternate endings being considered almost required content for most nerd movies now. This spans everything from the R-rated cut for Batman vs. Superman, the Kitty Pryde cut for Days of Future Past. Rogue cut for Days of Future Past.
Dumbass.
The alternate ending for Prometheus, and pretty much every deleted scene that has been included for recent Star Wars movies or Marvel movies. It seems like it's either required content or question about whether or not it counts as canon. So, Mike.
What
do you think about it? Is it something that even needs to be a thing, or are we just looking way too hard at this?
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of wasn't paying attention. What are we talking about?
You son of a bitch.
Okay, so... No. Okay, yeah. So I don't necessarily think it's required content. I think what it more so or not comes down to is the director having one idea, the studio having another, and the studio winning. Like, I really do think that's all it is.
Well, I think the best example of that exact argument right there was Suicide Squad and the involvement of Jared Leto's Joker. Regardless of all the other problems with the movie...
which there are numerous.
You had the director coming out, and even the cast coming out saying the Joker's going to be a big part of the movie. He's going to be he is the center point of everything that makes the movie, that makes the tone. And then when he got the movie, he was in the movie for maybe 5 minutes.
He wasn't even the main villain.
No.
Like, even in the original script, he wasn't the main villain.
No, but but in the original script, he at least had purpose. And in the final cut, he was there more as a thing, with the rumor that there was enough left on the cutting room floor that it could have been its own movie. That I think kind of encapsulates what you're talking about with director having a vision and the studio having a different, and where should that line be compared to where is it now?
I mean, it's always gonna, I think it's always gonna come down to the studio basically having final say. Like, especially if you're doing it in one of these cinematic universes where everything has to fit together and everything like that. Now, in terms of, like, just different movies in general, like with Prometheus, I think Ridley had his idea for what he wanted to do, and then, or Ridley and Damon Lindelof, I should say.
Yeah.
And then I think they just decided to go with, I think they filmed the two different endings and the two different openings, and I think they just went with whichever one fit better, if I remember right.
I mean, the problem with that, though, is that by going with the studio preference rather than the directorial preference, it actually created plot holes that you're left going, well, wait, so some of the big questions from the movie, where were they answered?
Right.
And you find out it's in the stuff that was left on the cutting room floor, and if you get the DVD and Blu-ray cut, maybe you can actually figure out where this, how that's supposed to all fit in, and realize, okay, so the plot holes are explained mostly.
Yeah, but like that's all movies, like, in general. The same thing. You had the same thing with Blade Runner.
Yeah, but that was a little bit more because there was legitimately so much content from the original book that you can't make a movie with all of it because it was so extensive. And I mean, that's more of a comment on Philip K. Dick's writing style than anything about the studio or the director.
But then I guess you could also make the same argument about the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah. I mean, that...
Like, it's always going to come down to director has one vision, studio has another vision, who wins out. Now, a lot of times, directors will get executive producing credits so that they can get final cut and final say in it. Like Spielberg has directorial and he has executive producer credits.
Yeah.
Spielberg basically gets to cut whatever the fuck he's putting out. Like, whatever gets put out is what Spielberg wanted to put out.
Oh, yeah. But then you go to something else like, we'll take a step back a few years to Alien 3. And, David Lynch wasn't throwing his name on that. Fincher, sorry. Fincher wasn't throwing his name on that at all for even a possible director's cut because he despised the final cut so much.
Yeah, rightfully so. It wasn't a good movie.
But I mean, because it's become more prevalent with nerdy inspired films today, is that a problem? I mean, does that indicate that there is a diametric issue between director vision and studio preference, or is that just how movies always have been, and we're just more aware of it now?
I think it's that we're more aware of it. I also think it's more like we as a society want as much content as possible.
Yeah.
So we will literally scratch and claw for everything that we can get. So they put that stuff out there now.
Well, I mean, you have certain things for deleted scenes, like The Force Awakens. You got the two big scenes that were cut that everybody talks about, which was Kylo Ren and some First Order snowtroopers finding the Millennium Falcon before Kylo Ren's confrontation with Han Solo, and it's only when he goes on to the Falcon that he realizes...
Spoilers!
When he goes on the Falcon that he realizes that Han Solo is there rather than the way it's cut in the movie. He realizes it when he's still in the base.
Right.
And that also puts into question, well, is it canon that Kylo Ren has been on the Falcon since turning to the dark side, or is that just something extra that doesn't actually count?
I just think that's internet nerds wanting to fight about stuff, though. Like, that shouldn't be... Yeah, Did it happen in the actual movie?
But then you have the thing about, well, for that instance... and even the instance after that of the big fight for Rey and Poe, not Rey and Poe, Rey and Finn leaving the base, getting shot at in speeders by snowtroopers, which was supposed to be a big thing, but didn't end up being included in the movie.
Right.
Everybody's talking about, well, is that canon? And the studio comes out and says, oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
But then you turn over to Marvel and some of the deleted scenes that they said, oh, no, deleted scenes don't count. But then a couple of them have been referenced in canon material, which makes some of the deleted scenes canon. But then you're asking, well, okay, if these couple are canon, what about the rest?
Yeah, I think that's just a continuity.
And that's, where it becomes, is it actually required content?
Well, that's just it. If it didn't make the final cut, I don't think it should be.
Well, okay. Then what about the rogue cut for Days of Future Past, or the R-rated cut for Batman vs Superman?
I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't watch the R-rated cut for Batman v Superman because it was hard enough to get through the regular cut. Then the R-rated cut added like 20 minutes of footage.
I mean, I've heard. I know what happens in it. I haven't bothered forcing that on myself either, but I do know that it does fill in a couple plot holes. It gives a little bit more explanation for some of the drama between characters.
Does it fill in every plot hole?
No.
Because there were a shit.
Oh, no, not even close. But from the best explanation I've been given for how many plot holes it fills in, and just from the synopses that I've read for it, it's like a difference between 50% plot holes to like 30% plot holes. It fills in some, and it helps make a little bit more sense, but then the rest of it, there was just no fixing. So, unless you added an entirely separate movie to do that.
Right, and I would argue... to hell with them.
It's Amazon, it doesn't count.
Yeah, they're not people.
I know.
Hi, Amazon. Don't send us free shit. With the road cut, I would argue, you haven't seen the road cut, have you?
Not yet.
Okay, it's really good.
But I mean, I know what happens in it, but it's on my list of things to watch this summer.
It's fantastic, but in terms of adding content that makes the movie make more sense, it doesn't. It only fills in one thing. And that's how they got found in China for the final fight. That's the only thing that it fills in terms of how they were found and why there were so many Sentinels.
Okay.
That's it.
But, I mean, it still adds in the additional plot points that revolve with Rogue and...
it was only one plot point, though.
The content of just having her in there at all.
Right, but it was only really one plot point, though. It was...
Well, two, technically, because the fact that they, in the theatrical cut, brought her in for, like, half a second in the very last scene of the movie.
Right.
You have to go, whoa. They didn't mention her anywhere before. They haven't shown her anywhere before. But now that she's back...
I mean, she was in 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, but in 3, she got her powers taken away.
Well, now that's an entirely different argument, so we don't know if she did.
Well,
because there's four different endings for that movie.
It's assumed that that's what happened, so you're left going, well, okay, wait. So you're saying that, yes, it's a different timeline, but she had her powers taken away in the original timeline. The fixed timeline at the end of Days of Future Past, she's back, has powers. You can assume that means that the events of the third X-Men movie don't count now, but you're still bringing a character that was never even mentioned in conversation before.
God, they don't count anymore.
So it means that, well, to that one piece of extent, it does give more validity to the Rogue cut being needed, at least for her character's story arc.
Right, but it wasn't needed for the overall story.
No. But if we're going to say that moving forward, if any of the next X-Men movies end up taking place after the events of the corrected timeline of Days of Future Past, and she gets brought back in, even if it's a different actress, then you still have to have in some way addressed her character at all. And the Rogue cut for Days of Future Past did that enough to validate bringing her in again. I mean, and that's really where you come in on that.
I mean, I'll be honest with you.
Does it matter if they were to do that?
No, to me, it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
I will be totally honest with you. For me, the movie that I see in a theater is the movie that I see in a theater, and that's what I go on. This whole director's cut, alternate cuts, alternate endings, alternate openings, alternating scenes, anything like that. I just look at it as oh, that's cool if that would have been in there. Sure. Kind of like a what if, basically.
Okay.
But these nerds that want to sit there and fight and... Excuse me, sorry. But want to sit there and fight about it. Well, it was a deleted scene, so that means it should be canon. And this executive said that it was canon, but this executive said that it didn't. So what are we supposed to... did you see it in the final cut of the movie? Done.
Okay.
That's how I look at it, but I'm a rational, sane person.
And as we know...
Looking at you, Internet.
As we know, any fandom that gets even half a second's thought on the Internet, that immediately throws rationality out the door.
They're out of their damn minds.
Although, we're on the Internet, so does that mean something about us?
No, we're special.
But okay, so I mean, I guess that kind of covers it. They exist. Do they matter? It's kind of up to you. Will the studios ever think that they matter? Probably not. And even if they do periodically reference them, we'll just call it momentary error. Whatever.
Yeah, basically.
And as for any lengthened cuts that come out after the theatrical that are supposed to fix plot holes,
should have released that version the first time.
Exactly. I mean, and if the argument is, well, but that's going to make it a 3-hour movie, and no audience is going to sit through a 3-hour movie. Lord of the Rings.
Titanic.
That's really all you got to point out. People were willing to sit through 3 hours of Lord of the Rings 3 times in theaters, and
then The Hobbit 3 times in theaters,
and then 5-hour cuts at home for the second version.
Dude, don't forget The Dark Knight was 2 hours and 35 minutes. Dark Knight Rises was 2 hours and 45 minutes.
I mean, at this point, if the movie's good enough, a 3-hour cut should not make the difference as to whether or not something should be cut if the content is there.
Right.
So.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, well then in that case, I guess that's about it.
Yeah, we're done. I'm done with this.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well then, this is Brad and Mike from Dallas Geek saying, see ya.